So you heard Councilman Barron, and you see these ideas on these placards. This is just called SMART. And when we talk about democracy, and you've heard that chant here today, and we're talking about a budget that we're trying to solve right now. But come next week, this budget will get solved one way or another. What are we going to do next year? Are we going to continue to see the income disparity grow in our city? When will it be enough? When the top 1% makes 70% of the salaries in the city? Is that what we want? No. Is that what democracy should look like? No. We need to be smart. This is New York City. And we now are the income disparity capital of the entire United States. We have the top 1% making 45% of the income. And we have our communities at risk. Our schools are at risk. All the services that people need are at risk because of the policies that this administration has put forth. And this is what we are asking for. Let's be fair. Let's make it for everyone. I love when they say it's everybody has to shared sacrifice. Well, the only people I know sacrificing are the middle class, the working class, and the people who need services. I see the rich are getting richer here in this city. The corporations are getting larger. And all they want to do is lobby to make sure that continues to go. Well, what you're seeing here today is the elected officials, the community groups, standing together saying enough is enough. Enough is enough. We want things that are going to make this city work for everyone. Everyone, not just those on top. And we want a mayor to lead in that direction. And if he doesn't lead in that direction, then we're going to take to the streets. And we're going to take to the streets and say enough is enough over and over and over until we get to a place where every school remains whole, where every daycare slot is put back into the budget, where all of the services that the community needs are put back into the budget. These are critical times, and we all understand that. But truly, enough is enough, and we need smart things. And that's why I want to thank everyone for standing here today, and this is what this city needs. Everyone coming together and saying, we want a city that works for us all. Thank you very much.
I want to recognize the other council members that are here. We're joined by Councilmember Tish James, Idanis Rodriguez, Margaret Chen, Jumaane Williams. I know Robert Jackson was here. Debbie Rose, council member, has a representative that is standing with us. And with that, I'd like to introduce the next colleague, Jumaane Williams.
All right. Are y'all angry?
Yeah!
Make some noise when you get here. You with me?
It's my money and I want it now.
All right. It's hot out here. We got to make it hot in there, though. They got to feel the heat. So the only thing the mayor has done good in this budget is created a space where we can organize like hell out here. Because the city is out here because of what the mayor is doing. Now, I've heard of robbing Peter to pay Paul, but the mayor is robbing the poor to pay the rich. And now, this budget shows you the priorities. Any budget shows you the priorities of anyone. The only two priorities I see in this budget that the mayor is pushing are the rich people and the prison industrial complex. Those are the only two things that he wants to support. Because the social networks, the teachers, the youth programs that he's cutting will only support the prison industrial complex, and it will look like black and brown young people who live in this city. Those are the people who are going to be affected. And I'm not going to talk long because it's going to be said and it has been said. Everything is on the table except revenue-raising options. The mayor refuses to go to people who can afford to pay for these things, maybe because they are his friends. He was silent on the millionaire's tax, and he's blaming us for not going to Albany. He still hasn't said a word on the millionaire's tax. He hasn't said a word on rent regulations. I'm going to end with this, and I'm not being facetious. I'm not embellishing, because it has already begun. If the mayor doesn't step forward, the blood that is being shed on the streets will lay squarely in the lap of Mayor Michael Bloomberg this summer. If he does not step up, the blood of the men, women, and children who will have no alternatives but to survive how they could, that blood and the deaths will be on the lap of this mayor. It will be on the lap of Mayor Michael Bloomberg. You will be responsible.
Cuts have got to go. Fist? Fist. All right, I got to learn. All right. You know, the good news is that scenario that Councilmember Williams outlined is not one we have to have. We're here today to articulate very real revenues, things that are on the table right now, things that this city can do to avoid the really decimating cuts that we're talking about. And to go through them for us is the Executive Director of the Strong for All Coalition, Michael Kink.
All right.
So 20,000 people marched from City Hall to Wall Street on May 12th because they knew that we couldn't close this city budget only on the backs of poor and working New Yorkers. People came together for a fair share budget. And we have $1 billion in practical ideas of how big banks, millionaires, and high-earning New Yorkers can pay their fair share to close this budget down. $1 billion in practical ideas that will prevent the worst cuts in the city budget. First of all, we've got to end subsidies to the big banks. 4 large banks, JP Morgan Chase, Citibank, Morgan Stanley, and Bank of America, were given $750 million in subsidies to create or protect 33,000 jobs, and they didn't do it.
That ain't right. That ain't right.
There's $100 million in city subsidies left to run that we need to stop. We need to press pause, and then we need to press stop. We need to get $100 million back to restore cuts. Second, we've got to close loopholes. The city taxes give special tax treatment to hedge funds and private equity firms, highly profitable investment corporations that can afford to pay less than 1% of their total tax burden with these $320 million worth of tax loopholes. Third, we've got to cut the contracts that the city has with the big banks. Just the 6 largest banks have $600 million in contracts. A 10% across-the-board cut would raise $60 million to restore the worst cuts. Fourth, we've got to sue MERS, the Mortgage Electronic Recording System, that the banks tried to use like a magic wand while they were slicing and dicing mortgages. They didn't pay over $72 million in recording fees that they owe the city of New York. We got to sue them, we got to get the money back and restore the cuts in this budget.
That sounds good.
Make MERS pay.
Last,
Hey,
we got to tax the millionaires.
that's right.
Mayor Bloomberg claimed that this coalition didn't go to Albany to fight the cuts, and that's just not true. This coalition was in Albany every day the legislature was there, fighting to retain the millionaires' tax that would keep at least $450 million in this year's budget and billions in next year's budget. End the subsidies, close the loopholes, cut their contracts, make MERS pay, and tax the millionaires. $1 billion in real revenue options to restore the worst cuts. We've also put another $600 million on the table, recommendations from the Independent Budget Office, recommendations from the Teachers Union, recommendations from nonpartisan observers of how the Bloomberg administration could create room to move so that some of these alternatives could happen over the next fiscal years. Over $1.6 billion to restore the worst cuts, all of it practical, all of it real, all of it supported by more than 100 unions, community groups, and advocacy organizations, and by 20 council members today. We're very proud to be working together to have this fight. Thank you.